Grundle Pop.
Grundle Pop.
Let me organize my papers. There we go. Let's see here. I don't know. What can I tell you about this story? It's a story about getting older. It's called Coral. I hate these halls, except for the three color bars indicating how to get where. It's all bleached out in white. Though I don't blame them for choosing white. Easier to see the muck that people leave behind, especially these people. Not that there's anything wrong with these people. They live and breathe and think, at least I'm told they think, and still retain most of the memories they had as children and a bit of their adult life. So they're completely normal, functioning people, except inside their head. Inside their head, their brain is fucked. So the floors and ceilings and clothes of the orderlies, and their shoes surprisingly, all bear that sterile, joyless shade. Administrators told me they don't want to overstimulate the patients, which makes me wonder why they have windows, but that point is moot. Everything is white, except for those lines on the walls. The lines have a very specific purpose. Besides keeping the gears inside the walls for chief, they lead the grieving to their living dead. The lines are designated as follows: Chipper Friends in yellow, Silly Yubles in blue, and Sunshine Gems in coral, which the orderly insisted we call it even though it's just plain pink. As you can imagine, the lines are in order of severity, and by design, the more severe, the further from the entrance you go. Me and Grandpa would be pushing to the heart of the Sunshine Gem cell, right into Coral, Grandpa's wife. I was staying with my grandpa to help him get used to living in a new place, a retirement home down in Florida. But really, it was just because I was unemployed and hanging out with the doctor was better than anything I had going on at the moment, so I jumped at the opportunity. And it was good to finally get to know the old guy, though we never really said much, and when we did start talking about something, it was always superficial. News, politics, sports, straight ahead goodness. Maybe it was better we didn't talk in depth. Having to explain why I was really there was a bit too taxing, and I'm sure he caught on to it anyway. So, I was there for better or worse, staring down the barrel of smoking cigarettes and unsuccessfully hitting on nurses at the old folks' home for an entire week. Then I remember that Coral was in a home for the mentally incontinent. At least that's what I called them. For the time, it sounded like what it was. Their minds were unable to hold anything, so it all dribbles out onto the floor. The way the orderly Chet explained it was a kind of mental feedback loop, starting at A, then getting to B sometimes, C, but always back to A. There is no D, no new sunsets, no new shows, only bitter pieces of the past on repeat that seep from the mind's murk to swallow any chance of a future. Any chance of a future that a human needs in order to be human. What scared me the most about it is how the mindless can become lucid, if only for a few moments, and witness the horror that has become themselves. As the orderly confided in me again, there was a man who they would only call Thompson. If they called him by his first name, he flew into a rage and attempted to murder other patients with the dayroom television. So he told me about Thompson. It was morning, and as the patients shambled through the corridor, in and out of rooms like they were in a Scooby-Doo cartoon, Thompson stopped in the middle of the shuffling miasma and righted himself up from his normal hunched-over form. He righted himself and looked through the door he was passing, through the window and into the garden where the sparks of a new dawn were being laid on the daisies. He held his gaze to the garden for a minute and turned to the orderly. And for a moment, the orderly continued, he looked like a good man, a strong man, someone who could have taught you how to fish or to throw a punch. Then Thompson's mouth began to mumble, bits of words attempting to slip out, tears wrapping around his eyes. And he came toward Chet the orderly, arms rising from his side, stretching out as far as they could. And out came the word, this? Then it was gone. The light in his mind shut off, and Thompson stopped. His body slumped down back into the shuffling gate, while his arms swung about like the saloon doors in the ghost town. I doubted this would be the case for Coral. They said she was pretty far gone, and I really wanted to see her. Why? I have no idea. Morbid curiosity, I imagine. But I did. So I egged him on. Grandpa, how's Coral? Grandpa, are you going to see Coral? Grandpa, is it true that Coral can't look up? He'd always reply in a meek voice how she's okay, and go back to the TV. So I kept at it like a kid asking to open his presents on Christmas Eve rather than Christmas morning. Eventually he caved in his own quiet way, and he took me to the clinic where they kept her. It was great when we went in. The waiting room was unremarkable enough. A pleasant nurse who knew Grandpa by name said, "Hi, Mr. Avondale, here to see Coral?" To which he replied, "Well, soon enough I'll be coming to see you." They both chuckled, and I looked at the TV, playing a 24-hour news channel. Apparently the Democrats had ruined the economy. Or maybe it was the Republicans. The receptionist said something to me about signing in. I did so, and we received our visitor's passes. The first door had a keypad that Grandpa knew the code to, 6198. Simple enough to remember. It felt like the place was built like a compound, or an onion. We were in some kind of inner-outer layer closer to the heart of the mess, just enough for the stink to encroach. Piss, shit, vomit, sterility, bleach, old. A synth so thick you could almost see a faint yellow running up the walls like nicotine in a chain smoker's house. Some patients were in this outer chamber, wheelchair-bound and gazing at the wall like it was some gigantic Sudoku problem that if they stared at it long enough, it may solve itself. Gurney-bound and laying like a bunch of bananas in covered sheets. I never understood why they had them there. Maybe they were too stimulated. From there, we went to the heart of the place, where Coral was kept. The Sunshine Gems Hall. A few smirking orderlies holding trays that carried the little white cups filled with medication. An old lady drifted through the hall with the ease and importance of a tumbleweed. Coral's room was across from the day room. I heard small wails coming from one of the rooms. I looked at Grandpa. He looked at room 308. It was dark in there, like the kind of darkness that children have nightmares in, where a smattering of light that comes through the window only amplifies the horrible shapes and contours of the room rather than extinguishing them. And strangely, there was the garden. And there was this tiny old woman hunched over that never moved an inch the whole time we were there. She looked into the garbage bin, and that was all. Coral was lying in bed, her skin pulled tight on her face so that the eyes popped out in desperation and confusion, and her teeth were more like a growth from a teratoma than something used for chewing food. There was no more meat on her body. I don't even know if she knew how to eat. Smelly, tangled, greasy tendrils of black hair stuck to her cheeks, hair that hadn't been washed in so many weeks. Coiled into the fetal position wearing a child's Disney princess onesie, she turned her head and saw Grandpa. "Have you seen my husband?" "I am your husband." "Oh, you are my husband. How are you?" "Fine, Coral. Are you eating? Can you eat?" "Have you seen Frank Avondale? He was supposed to meet me here." "I am Frank. I'm your husband. You still remember me, right?" "I'm scared." "You're safe here, honey." "I'm scared." Who was in the garden?" "There's no one there, Coral. Have you been eating?" "I don't know. Why can't I see anything?" "Hi, Coral. Do you remember me? Where's Frank? I'm scared." Her face couldn't muster any expression other than confusion, but she was able to let sobs quietly slip out of her mouth. Grandpa felt a change of scenery was in order, so we took dear Coral to the day room, where the other patients were congregated. It felt like I walked into a chamber where heavy decisions about my fate had just been made, all solemn faces. I kept seeing what I thought was recognition of the circumstances. Mouths pulled down like bulldog jowls, expressions like they were being perpetually surprised by the phantoms of their past. The three of us took the remaining seats and sat silently in front of the television. A commercial for a new kind of tubing that would revolutionize how you watered your lawn came on the television when a woman looked over at me. I ignored it as best as I could, but she was like a schoolgirl trying to whisper secrets at me from across the room. Soon enough, I turned and made eye contact with the woman. She was in a brown robe and had hair like cigarette smoke. She was beckoning me. I saw what I thought was life behind her eyes, recognition of the moment, of her life, where she was. "Billy," she started saying. "Billy, we can go home now." "Billy, please, I'm talking to you. Why won't you listen to me?" Unlike Coral, the cigarette woman had the ability to emote and wail, which she did and was doing as she called to me, her Billy. "Billy, we're going home right now. Why don't you answer me?" She stood up from her chair, tipping it over, and a loud metal clang echoed through the ward. The orderlies came in and took a hold of her. "Come on, Cassie, let's lie down." She fought as best she could to get her Billy, and when they took her to her room, I found out who Billy was. "That's my son in there. He loves me. And nothing but a door slamming. I couldn't handle it any longer. All these thoughts, all these moments, a life amounting to a fart in a hallway. These people, they were waiting to die, and they were all terrified. There was nothing good or humane about locking them away. I had nothing but enmity for these poor souls. I had to get out of there. I stepped out from the day room and went for a cigarette, but when I got to the door, they must have changed the keypad code. So I started banging on the door, but the receptionist just shakes her head and points towards the other way. I go to find Grandpa in the day room, and he's gone too. I start asking the orderlies where he is, and they tell me to calm down and have a seat here like that's going to help. I have to find my Grandpa. He needs me for the week. He's old. He just broke his hip. I look through the room where Coral stays and see no one is there. And I look through the window, and it's morning, and the sun is shining so beautifully today. And then I remember why I'm here. I see Chet the orderly, and he sees what's happening to me. He tells me to fight it. Stay with them. Stay now. I try. I goddamn try, and I hate these halls. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Woo!
And that one's about Alzheimer's. So this one's a little more upbeat. Let's lighten the mood a little bit. I figured there's a lot of good poems out there, but there weren't really many good poems about acting, so I felt I should write one. This one's called Ode to the Little Whitehead on the Corner of My Nose. Oh, yea to you, little pimple, little zit of infinite forgiveness. There you sit occasioning that spot where the nose meets the face. That crevice is yours and yours alone, a sensuous pillow of oils, skins, and bacteria. You give way to white pus and leave no trace of being there, no ghastly red ring, no bloody mess, not even a scab of regret. You tidy yourself so well. Not like the hideous blister, there it appears beneath your eye, a regretful embarrassment, thumb-sized. It lingers for a week, affording never a tasteful pop, only days of ineffective pressing, and days of never knowing when to stop. Not like the ghastly carbuncle, so stoic and forlorn. It rests on the end of your nose like a goblin on a jungle gym, waiting for the school children. Does it know to leave? Does it know to rest? No, it only knows stay. No, it only knows wake. Ah, and then the king of awful things, you, the dread, sebaceous cyst, hiding like a thief in the cupboard, waiting for your quiet slumber. In the night he has stolen your vivacity and left a cruel pustule, the crude calling card of an unruly dermis dweller. Indeed, but you are not they. You are a kindly dweller, one who's quick enough to arrive and would just as soon leave. So here's to you, that little whitehead on the corner of my nose. You will always be welcome, unless you decide to grow.
Yeah.
And next up, we have It's Resonances of an Ancient Earth, right?
Yes.
Okay.